Hey everyone, welcome to another Opus 14 deck tech, and this time we're finding the agent of Rosaria. That is right, Alcide. If you haven't played 12, Alcide honestly isn't that big of a character, but man did he get a gorgeous full art here, which I don't have, I just have the foiled version, but nonetheless. Ice Lightning, a combo that people have certainly tried in the past, and it finally got its dual element combination. So, how are we going to make this work? I have tried quite a few versions of this deck. And it was difficult to find a version that I found I really liked and that just felt successful, because there is just kind of this weirdness to it as far as timings and pressure and everything. I tried a package with the Turks from FF7 and I just don't like a lot of those cards. That might be better when the starter set comes out. I tried a package with just generically good cards such as Aranea or Bartandalus, but again, those cards all had kind of like a timing to it, like Bartandalus. If I didn't combo it with anything else, the entry didn't do much. Same with Aranea. Aranea only did something at damage 3, and sometimes this deck, if depending on how you draw, you just want to go super aggro, and you want to just really push them, so that never really came up. So finally, I think I found a version that at least has worked for me so far in testing. Let's get into it, see what it's all about. So Alcide is, of course, the cornerstone of it. When he enters the field, you get to play Ice or Lightning forward of cost 4 or less from your hand onto the field. And then anytime a Lightning forward attacks, you get to dull a forward they control. Or you actually can just dull your own forward if you needed to. And then anytime Alcide or an Ice forward enters your field, you also get to freeze a forward they control. So, how do we supplement this? Well, if you thought Alcide was the star, and we all did, that was before any of us saw this bad boy, and that's Zeromus. Zeromus, the ultimate villain from Final Fantasy IV. Good gravy. I mean, this card has sick mono art, and it's just, this card's brutal. Brutal. Anyone who's played against it has just had a moment of like, why is that card so dumb? So, he's card named Zemus in all situations, which to this day has never been relevant, but who knows, might be in the future. I guess it would matter in a 4 title deck. Well, no, not even in title, because you can play similar copies. But anyway, that part doesn't matter. So when Zeromus enters the field or attacks, he's going to freeze a character, which is really nice. Damage 3, he'll get haste, so he can enter, freeze, immediately attack, freeze again. That all part's fine. The part that makes him absurd is his final line, which says, at the end of each of your opponent's turns, dull all the forwards opponents control. That's in the end phase, so it means they can't respond to it. And it just makes this really weird game state where, unless you can get rid of Zeromus, I mean, they basically just lose the game because they can't keep any blockers, so combat is irrelevant. And again, because it occurs at their end phase, means that they basically can't do anything about it unless they're able to cheat stuff in on their turn, or they have like one of a few cards in the game that can like not be dulled or will reactivate or whatever. So these two are brutal. This is probably one of the best cards to play off of Alcide. Alcide, you freeze. Zeromus will freeze another forward for Alcide, and then he can freeze a character, swing in. I mean, I've had turns where people drop these two together, and like 4 cards on my board suddenly get frozen. So brutal, brutal combo, but let's see. What else do we got? Then we have Sephiroth. I like this card a lot. It's cheap. It does have kind of a weak body, unlike Big Bad Zeromus here, but I really love his ice effect. I'll be honest, I've never used his lightning effect once, which is you can hit an active forward for 5,000, but if they have a really cheap body, you know, Opus 8 Water Legends Zidanes, you can hit it with that. But what I love is that you choose a dull forward, you freeze it, and then that forward's owner will have to discard a card. I mean, that's Glacio Labilis right there. Freeze a forward and make them discard, and you get a body out of it. So I've only ever used that effect, but the other one is there if you need it. Really nice target. So this was the main core, of course, of Ice Lightning, but what do we supplement it with, right? So what I finally landed on that I found very useful is a Final Fantasy VIII package featuring this man right here, Laguna. This card was great to anyone who read it, and in particular, I like him a lot in this deck because of what he brings to it. So if you're running the Laguna, you pretty much have to run this backup Squall. Squall will give Laguna 1,000 power, and he enables his on-attack ability, which means that when Laguna attacks, he can dull freeze 2 characters of your opponent. Going into more of the 8 package, running 3 copies of this forward Renoa. She's going to get cheaper for every 8 character you control. If you control these 2, she's only 2. She can even become 0 if you can get her down that far. And then when she enters the field, you pick a category 8 character other than Renoa in your break zone, add it to your hand. I've actually used her off of Alcide quite a bit. just because I didn't have a better target, but obviously if you can play her for reduced, just do that anyway. Get back an 8 card, get back Squall, get back another Laguna. And then on damage 5, she can just dull the entire board when she attacks, which has never even come up because I don't think it's even gone to damage 5, but it's there if you want it. Quistis, another 8 character, help make Renoa cheaper, and we'll just flip over 4 cards, can grab any ice card, which includes all 3 of these, which is really nice. Should she enter at damage 5, you'll get another card, but again, that's not really relevant. Cypher, he's a very small body, but that's helped by Al Cid, which is, if Al Cid's on the field, now he's a small body that's going to dull something. He's a burst. He's going to let you search out a witch, of which we are playing too. This backup Adia, this witch can dull herself, put it into the break zone, and you choose a job witch in your break zone, and you play it right to the field. You can only do that on your turn, and there's only one witch that matters, and that's Ultimisia from Opus 7, our starter one. When she enters the field, you can choose up to 2 characters opponent controls and dull them. You can freeze their entire forward board or freeze their entire backup line. And should you bring her in on damage 6, you get 2 of those effects. This combo's been around for a while, but it still has a great, great kick to it where you just, okay, for the simple price of dulling and breaking a Dia, pull back the Ultimisia, boom, knock out your last blockers, freeze your entire board, whatever it is. Fun little thing. So, here's the 8 package, and I kind of just want to talk about Ice Lightning in general here for a second. In that, what was weird to me in some of the other packages is that a big complaint about Ice Lightning has always been, well, it doesn't really have much removal. Like, it's really good at pushing people out of the way, but it doesn't remove a whole lot, which is still true. I just, none of these cards really remove anything. They just push things out of the way. However, they push them out of the way exceptionally well. What I found about Al Cid that was awkward was that he only targets forwards. So what I like about Laguna is Laguna can now attack their backups. Because some games, people just won't play out any forwards. They're going to take time to build up their backup line. And so Al Cid doesn't feel as good there because there's nothing to freeze. Whereas if they're not doing that, you can put Laguna out, and Laguna can start taking out their forwards. Laguna, of course, can't be played off of Al Cid, but in practice, they're just this really neat synergy that Al Cid, when the forwards come out, that's when Al Cid comes down, and he's going to dull out the forwards, freeze them out. And Laguna is going to create this pressure beyond that. And that's what I really liked about this deck, was it just creates this feeling of pressure, of like your opponent has to do something that even if they don't, even if their forwards aren't getting removed, they're being pushed out of the way and you're attacking into them so much and you're taking out their backup line with things like Laguna or Zero Mist that they're having to spend so much to try to catch up. Speaking of Renoa, I've seen some people try Opus 6 Renoa with this Al Cid. That Renoa comes in, flickers him, and then Al Cid plays again. She fits in the 8 package, right? So if you want to, absolutely try that card. The reason I ultimately went for this one is, again, that card had a weird timing to it, where to get that to work, you have to have Al Cid and that Renoa and another Ice or Lightning forward you want to play all on the same turn. And depending on how matches would go, if I dumped my hand early, I just wouldn't have that. Or sometimes I just wouldn't draw it. So I felt like that one was just a little less consistent, but there is no denying the amount of power can come out of that. Also, one thing is on occasion, I really feel like you actually get too many freezes. So if you do that Renoa combo, Al Cid freeze, Renoa freeze, Al Cid again freeze, whatever he now plays, freeze. So do they have 4 forwards for you to freeze? Because if not, you're wasting a bunch of those freezes that aren't doing a whole lot. So that's why I ultimately decided to not go with that Renoa. But if you want to try it, I have seen it do well as well. So now that we've got our 8 Ice Lightning package, let's supplement it with just some generically good stuff. Here's Charlotte. Great ice card. She's your magnet. Honestly, there's usually before I put Al Cid out, if I have her, I'll put Charlotte out, then drop the Al Cid. So that way, other than Amaterasu, anything they want to hit, they're going to have to take to the Charlotte. Roche is a great card to see turn 1. He's just another little body, and he works, again, great with Al Cid, because like the Cypher, doesn't matter he's small, he's going to dull something out of the way now. And, again, both these cards create a feeling of pressure. You have to target this card. Hey, he can come at you as early as turn 1, already putting you on the back foot on damage, and then you've got this dull effect. Idolus, pressure. It is an EX burst which gets you back any ice character. So you go get back your Al Cid, you get back Laguna, Zero Mist. These are your 3 killers. So even if they get rid of it, you just get it right back, play it again. 2 copies of Red Mage. Now, anything in this deck can have haste, pressure, bringing down Laguna, and then using Red Mage. I've done that before on a full 5 backups. I'll dull 3, pitch 1, get Laguna. He dull freezes a character, and then I use the last 2 Lightning to use the Red Mage, give him haste. Now he's dull freezing 2 more. This is the very turn he came down. Pressure. Kate Sith, take the best card out of their hand. Drop it early is great. I've dropped it later. I've dropped it as the 5th backup before the mid game when you can tell they're trying to stabilize. I've done it in response to a Tyro EX burst. All right, well, I'm going to go get my Titan. I'm going to get my Philia. Cool. Kate Sith, yoink. Goodbye. Great, great backup. 1 copy of Gramus. Go get your Al Cid. Makes sense, right? 1 copy of Crow. Again, this feeling of pressure. Crow is really nice, too, with Al Cid in that not only can she get Al Cid back, or Zeramis, or Laguna, whatever forwards you want. Al Cid freezes the forward, but he doesn't dull it naturally, at least on entry. So I've had times where I'll freeze an active forward, and then I'll legit use the Crow, dull it. Now it's dull frozen, and Crow got me back whatever vital piece I wanted. 1 copy of X-Death. Man, it was so hard for backup space in this deck, because I broke a couple of my own rules too. In Ice, I always put in the 3-cost Edward backup, and I always put in Glacia Labliss, and none of those cards are in here, but I wanted to try a different style, and at least so far, it's feeling good. If you want to put in extra copies of this for the Black Hole Special, absolutely, but honestly, I've just found one to be really nice, again, as a pressure tool. Break your best forward, here comes Al Cid, now I'm dropping Zeramis from hand, you know, whatever it is you're targeting, so really nice. Sorry about the camera bump there. And looking at our summons, 3 copies of Chivalry. Again, the reason I ultimately went with this is the only ice summon I'm running over Glacia Labliss, who I love, is because, to me, the key part of this deck was keeping these guys alive. If you keep Laguna and Al Cid and Zeramis alive, you're going to win that game. So when people try to hit them with damage-based removal, being able to go Chivalry, pump it by 3, it's going to stay alive now. I've just found to be huge. And Glacia Labliss did feel a little redundant here because, again, ideally, your pressure is coming from Al Cid. Your pressure is coming from Zeramis or Laguna, so you don't actually need the... Like, dulling forwards is not something you're going to have an issue with in this deck. Now, we did say Ice Lightning struggles with removal, right? So in an attempt to at least get some of that removal, I went with 3 copies of this Odin. It's probably my favorite one. Yes, it's not going to hit 6 and above, so there are some targets it misses, but should you find yourself on damage 5, the fact that it's cheaper is nice. And it does hit a lot of relevant stuff. And it's an EX burst, really good. And then 2 copies of Bahamut Zero. This is just, again, a great win condition if you don't have Al Cid on the... If for some reason something's gone wrong and you don't have ways to dull forwards, or they've just got that big forward that, you know, is a big, big problem, having Beezerb come in and blow them to pieces, feels great. Ending off with 3 random tech choices. 1 copy of this Amano Ramu. I've always liked this card. It can, again, this is very matchup dependent, right? If they're just dropping 9K bodies and above, it doesn't do anything. But I do feel this is a pressure card in that if they're going to put something out that, you know, they want to try to avoid, especially like, let's say you're going against monks and they put out Matt, and Matt's going to avoid everything getting dulled. Well, hopefully if they don't have any power buffs, Matt's only 8K, you can immediately just, bam, zap it with the Ramu before they even search for a monk. Or any other dangerous forward they put out that it can kill. I like that you can just cast this from hand from 1 card. You know, you don't like have to leave backups up. So he's a tech choice. 1 copy of Vayne. This actually feels really good to play off Al Cid, especially if they've got big people out there like Broskas, Neo X-Death, whoever. And then you go Al Cid, Vayne, and just whoop, just put that whole board down. So he feels really nice. And again, as kind of a way to deal with those random ones is Shinryu. Shinryu I like as a one-of. He's going to absolutely crush a Tenzin or a Neo X-Death matchup. But beyond that, he's also really good against faster decks, such as Verse Stale or a Golbez deck, such as I've done in another tech, because usually those decks run a ton of forwards. So when Shinryu makes them reveal and it's a forward, a good chunk of their forwards are either going to be killed outright or they'll be so weak that, again, you can easily push through with any of your forwards, dull them, freeze them, keep them down. I really like this card in testing. So here's my version of Ice Lightning. Finally found one that I really liked. Let me know. I know this. I've seen so many different versions of this, so I'm sure everyone's got their own favorite cards they do and don't like, but this one has worked very well for me. Feel free to give it a try. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there's other 8 characters you maybe swap around for more effect, but I found this one is quite fun to play. So there you go. Enjoy, and deck list will be in the description below. We will see you next time. Take care.